I was in a situation where I was trying to move to a new area. I just met a new girlfriend, an area I wasn't sure of, but I was also in a fast track and corporate and all sorts of stuff, and I just felt in control of who I was. I had just come out of school. I had been, raised in a good Christian family, but I was done with all that, shall you say. So, in my circumstance, it was a convenience. It was just fun. It was just an experience in a new part of my life. And unfortunately, it didn't end up the way I had planned it to be. I was on a business trip and I got a phone call one night, and I was sitting in a hotel room, and it was a difficult conversation. And it kind of basically went, I'm pregnant. And I'll never forget it. It was, the response out of me was, well, you just have to get an abortion. And as I said that, it was like I could see the ether coming out of my mouth. I knew it was wrong. I knew that voice was wrong, yet it came out. Could I claw it back? Could I bring it back? No. In fact, I doubled down on it and insisted. So I said, okay, I'm on the road. Let's talk when I get back. And we did. And as we had more conversation, it became, what do you want to do? And I'll pay for it, and all the other questions and answers that you go through. But then I was met with a different question or a different comment when I was told, it doesn't matter anymore. You don't have to worry about this problem anymore. I said, why? And she said, I already had it, already had the abortion. I remember those words, and I remember that I had put that process in motion. I distinctly remember this. I was responsible for this. I caused this. I gave a solution that I didn't even believe in, yet it was convenient. It just wasn't going to fit with her circumstance, my circumstance. It was just a process. I solved the problem, and that's what I was doing at that time of my career, just solving problems. And yeah, the problem solved itself, but it left an indelible mark on who I was the rest of my life. So after the abortion, we never connected. That was the end of that relationship ended. It wasn't pretty. It was a little traumatic, but it ended. I decided not to move to that new part of the country. Went back, and I tried to put it out of my mind. And I just kind of ignored it, but it was always something sitting behind me in the back of my head that I kind of always wrestled with. And I was fortunate, a year or so later to meet my current wife of 35 years. And, we started down a new path, but I never really shared it. I always kept it in. I got involved in church ministry. My faith came alive. It was really quite an exciting time. I got involved in planning of churches and restructuring and teaching and all sorts of things. I was asked to be a founding board member for a crisis pregnancy center at the time, which then became a clinic, and actually one of the largest ones in Southern California. And it was an amazing experience. I hadn't processed it, though, truly processed it. I had confessed it. I'd asked for forgiveness. I felt that. But there was still, it was just like there was this void. There was this hole but it was in the past. I couldn't do anything with it. So I processed around it. That we'd started this clinic, and we were sitting there, and I was having lunch, and we weren't getting anybody to come into the center. We all built this. We started this clinic with the hope of saving babies, right? Who doesn't want to save the babies? But God didn't have that plan to start with. He had to teach us what it meant to actually, the wound of what an abortion leaves in both a man and a woman's life. Then walked in two sisters from our church, and they came in. They said, "Oh, we want to see the new clinic." Then it's all 4 rooms and everything was set up, but we weren't doing this. And I looked at her and she said, well, can we talk? And I said, oh, you're not here just to see the center. And at that time, I was helping with a new church plant, started as kind of an associate pastor role kind of a thing. And I said, well, can I change my hat and put that pastor hat on? How can I help you? And she shared that she had just left Planned Parenthood. And we had a conversation. When I look back on it, it's a conversation I wish I had had 15 years before. Maybe not even that long ago, but I didn't. Go a little further, part of my responsibility for being on the board of the Crisis Pregnancy Center was my partner on the women's side, who was doing the recovery ministry for women, and I was doing the men's side. Had went to a Deeper Still retreat and came back majorly changed and majorly impacted. And it came back and said, we said as a board, hey, we need to, people are going to serve, they should go to a Deeper Still retreat. That was kind of the third piece in the puzzle, if you will. And I look back on that, I didn't realize that I was supposed to go through that. So the executive director and the other board members said, if you're going to serve, period, in this Crisis Pregnancy Center, and if you're post-abortive, which I was quite willing to share, that's why I was helping with the men's recovery side of it, you also need to go through it. Well, it was spring of 2017, and it was, whoa, man, it rocked my world, changed my outlook. Deeper Still has had such an impact on me personally, both healing, but also the ability to serve. Every retreat, and I've served on multiple across the country, the healing is absolutely nothing I've ever experienced. I have never found a ministry that has such an impact and life-changing opportunity, especially when you look at the ages and the diversity by which the people come into a retreat. It is life-changing. It is so wonderful to be able to tell that story and tell my story. And I've been a supporter for 8 years, and the more I support, just because I'm a walking, talking example of restoration that comes out of a retreat like this.